Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello, this is Kevin Lopez, back from Personal Tutors, bringing to you the chapter Indigo from 12th class NCERT syllabus book called Flamingo. It's a real story written by Mahatma Gandhi by the author Louis Fischer. Louis Fischer happened to be a pre-British era writer who had a habit of noting and denoting quite renowned personalities in the daily life. Louis Fischer wrote the book The Life of Mahatma Gandhi, and based upon this book he happened to be the gifter of the famous Academy Award winning movie Gandhi as well. The story here, Indigo, indicates the plight of the Indian farmer and peasants during the British era, where they were forced to go ahead and indulge in plantation of indigo. My friend, Indigo Plantation has been deemed as a curse to the Indian villagers during the British era due to the scientific fact of indigo ruining the land and not letting anything cultivate on it for the coming few years. The Britishers had a great demand of indigo because they were coming up with the cotton mills, the cloth empire in the European nations, and thus the need of indigo was in great demand. The easiest way to get it cultivated here in India was to overrule the poor peasants who already were working on the lands owned by Britishers. The British here indulged a law that the 15% of the land should be reserved for indigo plantation and the whole harvest would be given to the British Empire. This agitated a few farmers as well, since Germany had in 1920s introduced synthetic indigo. Thus the British landlords here in India started giving out the land. Since they did not need any more natural indigo, they started giving out the lands back to the farmers, charging them the full cost of the land. They simply brought a decree that the farmer could go ahead and get rid of the 15% like sharecropper or cross-taker by paying off the whole amount in one go. Now that was really a deafening fact on already battered poor farmers of our country, India. A person named Raj Kumar Shukla from Patna basically hailed from a district called Champaran. He put in great efforts to meet Mahatma Gandhi and just let Mahatma Gandhi visit the district of Champaran once and just see the plight of the farmers that they were going through. He happened to be following Mahatma Gandhi in Ahmedabad. He visited him in his ashram near there. He couldn't succeed in getting him back there. He followed him to Bengal, to Calcutta, and finally Mahatma Gandhi, impressed with his dedication, asked him to visit him in the city of Calcutta. The city of Calcutta witnessed a denotive turn in lives of Rajendra Shukla, in lives of Mahatma Gandhi, as well as the peasants of Champaran. Mahatma Gandhi visited Champaran in order to check the plight and the condition that were prevailing in the district. To his dismay, he found that the farmers were really going through a bad phase. The Britishers had offered them buyback of the land, but charging them the full amount that they were already struggling to, being given out the whole harvest and 15% reserved for the indigo. Looking at the involvement of Mahatma Gandhi, the governor as well as the collector of the Champaran district asked him to leave the district immediately, which was denied by Mahatma Gandhi, thus starting the first step of the civil disobedience movement, my friends, by Mahatma Gandhi. So this is a prominent fact that Mahatma Gandhi came to know the value of civil disobedience in the district of Champaran, where he was trialed, brought to the court, followed by hundreds of farmers as well, who were protesting the very morning the trial was supposed to be. Alas, the Britishers were scared. They moved the trial to a few weeks later. The judgment was said to be declared within a few months, and later on the governor dismissed the case. Mahatma Gandhi knew that this was the first step of us winning against the Britishers in the form of civil disobedience. There were quite a number of lawyers who worked for the British Empire, and they were scared to go on a trial or take up a trial of a person who is fighting for the purpose of own land, since they were scared of Britishers banishing them from the decree and holding a level of a lawyer or a barrister himself. Mahatma Gandhi happened to be a renowned barrister himself, went ahead for studies in England, came back, struggled hard in South Africa, thus started working for India. He knew that the moment of satyagraha and civil disobedience could take a long run into the fight of freedom, and we could slowly carry it out in the way performing non-violence and letting the Britishers kneel down in front of the demands of us Indians having equal rights. He asked the lawyers not to be scared of, even if he's being imprisoned, not to just go out of the places, but remain in the same place and struggle hard. Thus, Mahatma Gandhi demanded 50% of the returns by the Britishers for every peasant on every piece of the land they owned. The Britishers were a bit reluctant, yet they settled the offer in 25% return. Mahatma Gandhi, a thoughtful person, readily accepted it because he knew that money wasn't important at the moment. It was the self-realization of freedom, self-realization of strength, the own level, the legalization of the Indian peasant, the Indian citizen. That's what was important during that time. Thus, Mahatma Gandhi was quite happy with the fact that Britishers were ready to give back the 25%. A funny incident happens over here when Raj Kumar Shukla and the other lawyers visit Mahatma Gandhi and ask him why he had settled in 25%. He mockingly said, "We have just won over the British." Since this was the first noted notion where the British Empire had actually agreed to negotiate with the Indian leader, who happened to be a fellow roaming around in a dhoti and a stick. So we'll have a look at the question and answers right now that will explain you a few important notes in the chapter. Now, who was Raj Kumar Shukla? Basically, Raj Kumar Shukla was a sharecropper, as the other peasants available out there. Raj Kumar Shukla was poor, physically strong, or illiterate. Obviously, being a peasant from a district of Champaran and a sharecropper, he happens to be poor as well as illiterate. Why Raj Kumar Shukla described as being resolute? Why is Raj Kumar Shukla described as being resolute? Raj Kumar Shukla happened to be resolute and adamant, since the fact noted by Fischer clearly depict that he was adamant to bring Mahatma Gandhi in the district of Champaran and let him see the plight of Indian farmers who were going through a very bad phase, almost neglected, families dying, kids full of diseases, and various other facts. He kept on visiting again and again to Mahatma Gandhi wherever he used to go. He followed him to Ahmedabad, he followed him to Patna, he followed him to Calcutta, just in order to make him, convince him to visit Champaran just for once and see the plight of the person. Indeed, this happens to be a change in Mahatma Gandhi's life as well, because he came to know about the power of civil disobedience through the incident. He himself has testified. He has testified on the fact that it was the Champaran incident that went ahead and really showed Mahatma Gandhi the power of civil obedience that had actually given us the freedom later on in the decades. Why do you think the servants thought Gandhi to be another peasant? As I said earlier, Mahatma Gandhi, a person, lean, lanky-bodied guy, holding a stick, roaming around in a dhoti, a loincloth across his shoulder, that's all he used to wear. He did not wear slippers, nor any shoes, and he went ahead with Raj Kumar Shukla to visit the farmers. Whilst they were visiting, the peasants knew that Raj Kumar Shukla was a sharecropper and a peasant, thus taking in, dignifying Mahatma Gandhi as well as a peasant who would be a friend or a co-worker with Raj Kumar Shukla. What did the peasants pay the British landlord as rent? What did the British now want instead, and why? Why would be the impact of synthetic indigo in the prices of natural indigo? According to the long-term contract, it was a decree declared by Britishers that the farmers would have to reserve the 15% of their land for indigo farming, and whatever the harvest would be on that 15%, they would pay it completely to the British Empire. Later on, when in Europe the Germans started making synthetic fiber, the Britishers got a cheaper option rather than getting it imported from India and paying high rates for cultivation, the land, as well as the salaries and wages. Thus, they asked people to abolish the 15% sharecrossing thing, instead pay the 100% of the land and take their lands back. Now this happened to be the last nail in the coffin for the peasants who were already burdened by the wages, by the mortgages, by the rent, by the taxes and the wages being paid to the Britishers. Thus, if they wanted to have the land back, the British landlords clearly informed them to pay the 100% amount of the land and take their lands back, or else lose them. In spite of giving 15% to the Britishers, they had a few margins left for their family to be fed. Take to the point here that if the complete land would be taken away, they would be left hand to mouth. Thus, Raj Kumar Shukla wanted Mahatma Gandhi to notice this illegal decree going on under the nose of emerging India. The events in this past of the text illustrate Gandhi's method of working. Can you identify some instances of this method and link them to his ideas of satyagraha and non-violence? There are many instances in the history, and you would, my friends, have gone ahead and studied in the chapters up till your 10th standard of history. Who all are in humanities would be studying history in the present era as well in your syllabuses, that Mahatma Gandhi was a person who wanted to have his goal achieved through the process of satyagraha, non-violence, civil disobedience, and many more things that did not involve the violent factor that a few sections of Indian freedom fighters supported. His way of working was quite simplistic. He followed the decree of forgiveness, yet he was an adamant fellow. The incident here mentions clearly that whilst he was asked to leave the district of Champaran immediately, since the Britishers knew that he could instigate a spark in the hearts of the farmers as well as the people around, thus being afraid of his presence. Later on, when the trial was taken to the court, when they were about to sentence him to the prison, the presence of hundreds of farmers around the court gave the magistrate a chill about being suddenly ridiculed by the hundreds of farmers and lawyers outside. Thus, they prolonged the sentence to a few weeks. Here Gandhiji, most importantly, came to know the best outcome of civil disobedience. He was ordered by the court to leave Champaran, yet he did not do that. According to Gandhiji, the biggest reality is the truth, and no other law can overcome the power of truth. That's what Gandhiji followed, and hence led the movement of civil disobedience across the nation, inspiring quite a number of freedom fighters, quite a number of politicians during those era. Why did Gandhi agree to the settlement of 25% refund to the farmers? As I mentioned while explaining the chapter to you, money wasn't of any importance for Gandhiji. The thing that inspired and the thing that we needed at the very moment was self-realization. The Indian people needed to know themselves, the power within themselves, and the self-reliability. They were not just fixed to a fixture or being relied on the Britishers. Instead, Gandhiji wanted them to realize that as a citizen of India, they had a few duties. They were free to work on their own lands. They had the power to protest as well. Thus, Gandhiji did not argue with Britishers on giving just the 25%. At least that would be giving the farmers a notion and a decree back of getting their lands back from the Britishers. How did the episode change the plight of the peasants? The episode of Champaran went ahead and changed the plight of the peasants by letting them know the power within themselves, by letting them realize about their hidden powers, by letting them get their own lands, becoming the landlord again on the very land they were working as laborers. That's what Gandhiji looked forward. That's what Gandhiji wanted the peasants to know, that it is the farmers, it is the peasants, it is the villagers who are actually the backbone of India. Leave about the industrialization, the heavy industries, the public sector units that have come now, my friends. Looking at India, we can find India to be an agricultural nation. Thus, Gandhiji knew that the real farmer, the real power lied in the hands of the farmers. If we work up in upliftment of farmers, yes, my friends, we can go ahead and get a country ahead. Look at Switzerland. Look at European countries. They don't have industries. They are based on cash crops. They're based on farming. Switzerland, the biggest producer of chocolates, milk industry. It's all farming, my friends. It's nothing like that. Gandhiji knew that the power and the plight of farmers had to be improved in India. Thus, the incident of Champaran, quite famous era in the history of freedom fight, changed the plight of farmers, giving them a power of realizing their own self. Why do you think Gandhi considered the Champaran episode to be a turning point in his life? Gandhiji knew that the Champaran moment had changed the way the fight of freedom was to be fought. Gandhiji knew that even by leaving the non-violence, they could go ahead and bring in the civil disobedience. Civil disobedience, my friend, is simply denying the orders given by the police or the court or by the governance during the British era. suddenly it was a boom in India. Suddenly it was followed by every other person and politician. They simply denied it. They simply denied the decree or the judgments of the British courts, since they were looking forward for equality of Indian system in the empire. Thus, the civil disobedience thing clicked to Gandhiji, spreading it widely across the nation, thus bringing a new change in the fight of the freedom that led to the freedom of India at the night of 14th August 1947. Thus, my friends, this thing changed. This thing changed the way Gandhiji perceived the forthcome and the outcomings of the freedom movement. How was Gandhiji able to influence the lawyers? Gandhiji knew that if the lawyers would walk away, the farmers would not be supported. Already the farmers were afraid and scared of the Britishers, the British landlords. It were the lawyers who actually could help the farmers know about the facts, know about the judgments, know about their strength and their entity. The lawyers, being scared of British Empire, wanted to leave as soon as Gandhiji was imprisoned. Yet Mahatma Gandhi knew that since the mind game that we had played with the power of civil disobedience, we actually had won. India actually had won the first fight in a form of civil disobedience with the Britishers. What was the attitude of average Indian in smaller localities towards advocates of home rule? Advocates who used to go ahead and decree or support the home rule were often looked away from the citizens. They had a notion of being scared of using the advocates who were being home ruled, since they were scared of Britishers paying a decree or an order on them that would really indemnify the status that they were living presently. Mahatma Gandhi knew that if the lawyers would walk away, the power in the hands of farmers would be lost. Thus, he requested them to stay at the very place they work and carry on the job, thus empowering the peasants more. How do we know that ordinary people too contributed in the freedom movement? Ordinary people. Raj Kumar Shukla, a simple peasant who was suffering under the British Empire, had a decree and an order where he knew that if the influence of Mahatma Gandhi would be felt by the peasants of Champaran, they could have get a breath of life. He knew that being a normal citizen, he had to put in effort to visit Gandhiji again and again and convince him of coming back to the state of Champaran and looking at the plight of people. Yet, he struggled hard. There are many instances mentioned in the history of the freedom movement where normal middle-class people indigenously played roles against the British Empire, yet not remembered or embarked. A few instances like Raj Kumar Shukla, there were a few people who went ahead and played the role like Khudiram Bose and all normal middle class people. Let's not forget Bhagat Singh, Rajguru Sukhdev as well, who played an important role in the freedom movement, yet being from a middle class society, not being from a high class background, did give in an effort to have the freedom movement successful. Discuss. Freedom from fear is more important than legal justice for the poor. As we know, being poor in India is a curse. Anybody living a life of poverty almost shares a living hell. We can watch it on the streets, we can watch it outside the temples, any religious place, we can see them begging for the alms. Thus, being poor in our country is more often linked to be a curse. Gandhiji knew one thing, that being poor is simply a situation or a condition where the person does not know his own strength. He knew that freedom from fear is a bigger threat than just being poor in India. A coward dies 100 times before his death. The phrase, the term that I remember now here, said by great William Shakespeare in the play Julius Caesar, clearly depicts what Gandhiji had in notion. So thus, to get out of this fear and unchaining the strengths is more necessary rather than being poor. Choose an issue that has provoked a controversy like the Bhopal gas tragedy or Narmada Dam project in which the lives of poor have been affected. Friends, this question can be answered on your own notion as well. Still, we know it was the poor section of the society that was affected the worst in the Bhopal gas tragedy by the Union Carbide Company and the Narmada Dam project that has engulfed quite a number of villages. I personally have been on a project to villages like the towns like Harsood, the new places near the East Nimar, seen the places being devastated. Another project that we can correlate with this is the Fukushima nuclear disaster that took place in the recent years in Japan. Fukushima Kaiju had a nuclear reactor that was provoked in the month of July 2011 by an earthquake near Fukushima Kaiju. Kaiju, my friends, is Japanese for an island. Was provoked by the tsunami that had been created due to the earthquake near Fukushima, thus draining the 3 reactors, cooling them down subsequently, yet no lives were affected. Still, it was about 10,000 people who were evacuated immediately due to the radiation that had spread. The following questions, I'll just co-join them over here. The effects of Fukushima disaster could immediately not be seen in the biome surrounding it, yet it started showing signs of something going wrong, the radiation affecting the marine life, the plant life, as well as the aerial life around it. Later on, the question says, how could it be evacuated? How could it be eradicated? Is simple, by not building such nuclear plants near the populated areas. We can use secluded places, we can use forests, we can use deserted lands for such things. But the irony here lies, my friends, that due to being a source of income, more poorer sections of society tend to stay near these industries, thus creating a chance of living under a hazardous area. It's about something about thinking more, my friends. Thus, I leave you today with this notion that Mahatma Gandhi realized the fact of civil disobedience in the district of Champaran because of a common man known as Raj Kumar Shukla, who paid importance just to let Mahatma Gandhi visit. Bringing to you now, these were the briefs. I would request you to comment below for more questions or clarifications or discussions. If you want to know something about us or me, just click the button about us. If you want to know something about the channel, please do subscribe us for more notions every day. You can get the data online and in pen drive as well. So thank you very much for attending this session with me.